Hey everyone, welcome to Transcending Focus, the power of persuasive selling. I'm Lenny.
And I'm Colleen.
We are so grateful for you to show up to our webinar today. We can't wait to show you what we're going to do. We're going to wait a few seconds though because a bunch of people are just jumping on the call right now. We see people are coming in from all over the place, all over North America actually right now so far. We see people in Manitoba. We see people right now in Texas. We see in Colorado. Oh, very nice. And California, BC, and of course our home, Ontario. We see a lot of people from Toronto because we have a good presence out here. So we'll get started in a couple seconds. Can everyone hear us? If you can't hear us, just type it in the chat bot that you can't hear us.
Awesome. All right, so now that we're going to get started, what we want you to do is grab a pen and paper. We're going to be giving you guys a lot of really valuable information, but of course, that information is only going to be valued to you if you actually hang on to it. So make sure you're taking notes and reviewing them after this because it's going to help you start that proper foundation.
As well, one of the things we also know is because you're at your home, you're at your office, or wherever you are right now listening to this webinar, maybe watching it, and your phone could go off, and you could be checking your phone every 2 seconds, or someone could be talking to you, or you're taking calls, or watching television. Don't do that, because the reality is that we're going to add so much value to you. You can spend the next 45 minutes with us to ensure that you get what you deserve from a program like this one. So make sure you spend the time, get focused, and let's have some fun together.
All right, Lenny, so let's jump in. What is today about? What are we going to be talking about?
Well, today is all about how to increase your sales without actually spending the time doing it. What do we mean by that? Colleen and I have spent years and years becoming phenomenal salespeople, and we've distilled it down to a various program and some good secrets that we're going to share with you today. So what you're going to do is you're going to take some of the secrets that we have and we're going to implement them in your mind so that you can become more successful without spending all those countless hours of practice and practice and practice that we have done.
Because let's be honest, there's a ton of different sales strategy, communication technologies out there that you could be dapping into. But if you get too into them, you're going to be spending more of your time trying to learn new skills instead of practicing and adapting them into your business. And so really what we want to do is we want to give you the most effective ones that you're going to be able to implement immediately and be able to make changes today.
And that's really our goal for today is we're going to actually outline to you what we're going to be teaching you today because Colleen and I guess if we had to define ourselves, we're individuals who are excellent at communication. And we've understand that there's certain parts of communication that we could convey to you. And if you implement it in your own best practices, you're going to have a better life. So the first thing we're going to try to teach you today is we're going to show you how using communication to change your perspective on sales and relationships. So using communication as a way to listen better, as a way to see the world in a different light.
That's right. We're going to be talking to you also about how to pitch and sell to the most lucrative demographic. Wouldn't that be awesome if every time you do a sale, it's a bigger and bigger and bigger sale, and by the time you're finished, you've reached new heights that you never imagined possible?
And of course, everything in the world is sales, at least in our opinion. So really what we're going to teach you how to do is we're going to teach you how to communicate more effectively. And that can expand, of course, into your sales practices. It can equate to how you communicate with prospects, your boss, your colleagues, but also at home and your interpersonal relationships with your spouse and your kids.
We're going to help you change your relationship with success and with all of the people that surround your life.
Absolutely. So if you stay until the end, what you're going to have is you're going to have 3 specific secrets that we have learned over our 15 years of success in the sales platform, and we're going to convey them to you. And then at the end, there's also going to be an additional special bonus that we're going to add to you so that we really make this a very valuable 45 minutes to an hour program for you.
That's right. So what makes today's training different than the others that you've seen and you've done before? As we said, there's hundreds of thousands of other types of sales training models out there. Why are we different? How are we going to help you achieve the success that you've wanted to have, but you haven't yet had the time to achieve it so far?
Well, really, for our perspective, it's all about we've done it, we've built it, we've seen it. So you don't know us necessarily. So I'll tell you a little bit about me, and Colleen can tell you a little bit about her. But the reality of the thing is that we've been running businesses in the financial services sector as well as entrepreneurial endeavors and development for the last 15 years in some way, shape, or form. And most of those companies have been extremely successful to the tune of, we now run 5 different companies, all producing approximately 7 figures worth of revenue. And we didn't think that was enough for us. We wanted to become the best communicators because Colleen and I, we constantly get this from many people. We're young. We're not the oldest people. We're not the 50-year-olds. We're not the 70-year-olds. We're individuals who have been in business for 15 years. What has made us so successful? And it's the fact that we felt that communication was the most important thing.
That's right. When I first started off in the industry, I was in a position where, of course, as Lenny mentioned, I was pretty young, but I was also having a lot of trouble learning how to communicate more effectively with clients. And really, quite frankly, how could I ever expect somebody to listen to me and act on what I was selling to them unless I was able to communicate effectively? And that's really when we got into neuro-linguistics programming. So both Lenny and I are at the master practitioner and trainer level for neuro-linguistics programming. It's a process that we've been completely embodying for much of our sales careers, and it's been one that's really changed our perspective and focus as well.
So Colleen and I have done a lot of good things in our career. If I had to kind of look back over the last 15 years, it's been a crazy ride. Because about 15 years ago, I started as a junior IA in investment advice, really what that means. And I was dealing with small accounts, usually under 100,000. And this year, I've been negotiating deals that are in the 8-9 figures range. So dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars to ensure my success. And that doesn't happen naturally. That's not something that you just stumble upon or that you're born with or anything like that. It took a ton of hard work for us to get there. And I can tell you that without any illusions, that when you're building yourself up, people sometimes believe that there's some cognitive bias there, that it's going to be easy, because when the news gets reported, you only hear about the success story. You only hear about the final little thing. You don't hear about the years of work or the time that they put in to make big things work well.
That's right. And we've also had a lot of experience in doing things the wrong way. So along with doing it the right way, we've learned massive amounts of information from the things that we haven't done the best way. So when I started off in the industry, your first couple of years in most people's sales industries are always going to be a little bit of a harder year. You're building your foundation. Reason why a lot of people tend to leave those industries, whatever they are, after a 2-year mark is because they've gotten to a point where they thought that they would have success by that point and they haven't yet. And I was actually in that exact same position. I was in a position where I had been working at it, trying my best, but I just wasn't working effectively. It seemed like I was working really, really hard, but I wasn't working smart. So I was wasting a ton of time on rookie mistakes, getting very down on myself, feeling very depressed, and almost ready to walk away from the industry in general. And that's really when Lenny stepped in and started to help guide me into a better direction. So everyone does well, everyone makes mistakes, and it's learning from those mistakes and cautioning those who we are working with on how to avoid those mistakes and learn from our mistakes. That's really what's helping make us different from the other trainers.
And really, that's one of the major secrets that we're going to be teaching you in a few seconds. We're not going to go into it too deep right now because we'll have that in a few slides. But the reality is, guys, is that successful people don't see the world the same way that non-successful people do. They recognize that things are going to go wrong. It's going to happen. Nothing is going to be perfect for you. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. But successful people see those things as learning opportunities. They are not failures. The only failure is you giving up. Recognize that and you will have a better life. That's one of the major secrets. If you spend any type of time with me, you'll know for a fact that I don't believe in failure. The only failure lies within me giving up.
And one word that I want you to write down right now is behavioral flexibility. This is going to be a concept that we're going to dive a little bit deeper into, but write that word down and underline it. Behavioral flexibility is going to be a new tool that you are going to be able to implement immediately and make sure that it makes a big and strong positive impact on your business decisions.
So what are we going to give to you in this 45 minutes that we've taken over 10 to 15 years to figure out for ourselves? Well, the first thing is we've discovered a simple technique that can help everyone close more sales. That is the first thing. is that imagine that getting more sales and more money in your pocket, or having better relationships, or meeting the girl of your dream, or the guy of your dream, or having kids that actually listen to you is easy. It's not that hard. It's not actually something magical. It's just actually quite a simple system that we're going to teach you, and some of that is going to be done right on this call.
That's right. We're also going to be talking about the secrets to better communication. The better that you are at communicating to your audience, the more successful you're going to find your outcome. You want someone to be able to act upon it. You have to make sure that you are diving into their emotional response and their psyche, helping guide them towards the goal that you're setting forth.
And lastly, of course, we want you to have better and stronger relationships. Because while money is fantastic, and I can tell you this program will supply you with more money in your pocket because you'll be closing more sales, interpersonal relationships are where happiness lies. When you're getting along with the people in your life better because you're able to understand them better, as well as you're able to have them be more influenced by what you have to say, you are a happier person. You're not battling. You're not running uphill all the time. You're always running downhill. And that's what we want to teach you guys how to do, is to have better relationships via communication tricks that we've picked up over the last 15 years.
That's right. And as I kind of alluded to before, it has not been a smooth ride the entire time. While we have had an abundance of success, we've also failed many times, but it's those failures that are going to benefit you the most, because you'll be able to learn from our mistakes and be able to avoid them and make new strategies for yourself.
Yeah, like for myself personally, it hasn't always been easy. So I had some great success in business until I think it was 2012, where I was doing fantastic in business, but then I got sick. I was in the hospital for actually over a week, bedridden, couldn't move, and even when I was out of the hospital, I was down out of the count for a month. And you may think that that has nothing to do with what we're doing here, but the reality is that business, especially sales, relies on a certain level of momentum. When things aren't constantly in the pipeline and new prospects are being created, you actually have a great deal of problem making money. So what happened after that is that even then, when I was finally back at it, I still had 3 to 4 months where I made literally nothing. I was in the red every single month. And the only way I was able to actually bring myself back from the precipice of bankruptcy was actually to go back to fundamentals. Understand what's going on in the communication side of things, understand what people are thinking, and learn how to tailor my approach so that I could influence more people faster. And only 4 years later, since 2012, I can tell you those 5 businesses that I do run are producing 7 figures.
That's right. I had similar situations where I encountered hardships, little setbacks here and there that were really turning out to affect my business drastically, because it was a confidence thing. So I had landed a very large account that I was extremely proud of doing. I'd worked very hard to get there. Well, a year and a half into the account, there started to become a little bit of turbulence. It wasn't going the way that I wanted it to go. I felt like the relationship was starting to deteriorate. There was trust issues that I was starting to develop, as well as I'm sure they were starting to develop. And then animosity in general just became an underlying tone. And the problem with that was that I was no longer focusing on building and generating and communicating. I was always focusing on the negative side. So my confidence also deteriorated significantly because I was so worried about not doing a good enough job. I wasn't walking into the room confidently like I had before. I was walking in timidly. And that's when I recognized I needed to make a big change. I'm happy to say that after I started to implement and focus more on communication effectively, and also making sure that whenever I was communicating with the people that it was a positive situation, that's when things really started to change, and it got better, and it got a whole lot better.
Absolutely. So the great news for everyone who's listening right now, and here's all those negatives and positives, is that the reality is everyone deals with the exact same success roadblocks, and they all try to get out of it in a variety of different ways. So they purchase products or trainings that just don't work, or they focus on the wrong things, like what's not working in their life rather than what is working. And that is one of the most defeating attitudes that I see on a consistent basis when I'm mentoring so many individuals, is they always focus on the wrong things, and tied with that, they have a very bad mindset. They're focusing on the things that aren't working for them. And when you focus on what's not working, you're going to have more of what's not working. If you focus on what's working and acknowledge what's not working and fix it, then what you have is actually success. I think there's a book out there that was written by a Navy SEAL. I can't remember the title of it right off the top of my head. But what he talks about is that when something goes wrong, when they're a Navy SEAL, what they do is they look at it, they address it, then they move on right away. And what people are constantly doing as a roadblock to themselves is they look at what's not working and they fester on it. They focus on it. It becomes all that encompasses them, and they say, oh, I suck, I'm terrible, I'm not good enough, I'm this, I'm that, and the other. What we need to learn as a group of individuals who are looking to get better at their lives is don't focus on those wrong things. Focus on the good stuff that's happening. And what in turn will start to happen is you start to create that momentum and that snowball effect. And they aren't spending the time on personal development. How much time do you spend on personal development? I congratulate you for coming to this webinar today because you're taking a step that 99.9% of people don't take, yet they complain about their lack of success. So imagine complaining about something and doing nothing about it. Does that sound like you, or do you sound like the person who says, something's wrong in my life and I'm going to take action?
That's awesome. And that's what you're doing today, is you're taking action. So don't stop here. Keep going with it. You're already recognizing where you can make changes because success does not come easy. But do you want that secret path? Do you want to know the success or the ways to avoid the typical mistakes that people are making along the way? You want to be able to set yourself apart? Well, you're already on that path to do it.
Congratulations for doing that. But now comes the work. We're going to start launching into our three-month fundamental secrets in just a second. So what we'll say to you is this. Success does not come easy. People are not born successful. It takes a massive amount of hard work. And that means that even though we're going to take all the information that we've learned over our 15-year careers and try to distill it down to you very quickly, it doesn't mean that by the end of this, it's going to be easy. It's automatically going to happen for you. There are certain things that you're going to need to do, that you're going to need to change in the way that you communicate with people or the way that you understand the world, that are going to need to happen for this to work for you. And that is the first part leading into our first secret, which will be just in a second, is that you got to understand what success really is. There is no such thing as that overnight success. Sorry to burst your bubble. Every single person that you see on the internet doing those webinars that says, I was able to do it in 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever it is, that is baloney. They have spent years and years gathering information, and they're going to try to distill it to you. And we're going to do the exact same thing to give you those tools so that we're going to take that 10 years of mastery that you're going to learn in a second, and we're going to distill it down to about an hour.
That's right. So we're going to start talking about the 3 fundamental secrets for success. We're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be teaching you how you can achieve it in both your professional and personal life. So success secret number 1. The common characteristics and a specific approach amongst the most successful people in the world is...
They all spend time doing it. And that's really what it comes down to, guys, is that success took time for these individuals. So we're going to start by referencing this massively amazing book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. If you haven't picked it up, I suggest that you do, and I can do a little book report on it for you. But the reality is that all individuals who are successful, they leave a certain amount of clues to them.
That's right. And really, when you take a look at how they all came together, it was specific points in their lives that really made that difference. So each of these individuals, they had a very specific situation that they entered into. It didn't necessarily mean that they were going to be as successful as they were, but what they did was they recognized it, they grasped it, and then they took it from there and they became masters of their specific craft. So for both of these gentlemen who we're seeing here, Bill Gates, and we're also seeing here Steve Jobs. I don't know why I had that brain lapse, but we're seeing here 2 of the most influential people in our technological history. These 2 completely changed the way that you communicate through technology on computers. If they did not do this, who knows where we would be right now.
So the good news is, for these guys right here, is yes, they had a natural aptitude at things. They were smart individuals. They were analytics. They liked to learn. And again, we put you in that exact same category because you're sitting on a webinar looking to learn something. So congratulations on that side. But the reality is that everyone thinks that guys like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were just touched by the hand of God and they were geniuses out the get-go. No, the reality is they actually had a very interesting history, and that's why we're talking about this from the standpoint of Outliers. Is what very few people recognize is that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates went to schools and were in programs where they actually got to play with computers when no one else was playing with computers. So Bill Gates was able, from the grade 8 on, I think that was, so that's I guess 12, 13 years old, to the age of about 25, he didn't take a day off. He literally was spending 5 to 8 hours every single day working on a computer, learning how to program, learning how it works, so that he had a better understanding of it than anyone else. Tai Lopez calls it the dark years. Other individuals like Malcolm Gladwell call it the 10,000 hours of mastery. They spent the work to become masters. And Steve Jobs was no different. Steve Jobs for many years was playing around and tinkering with computers. He was doing things on design and reading on design. He wasn't taking Saturday and Sunday off and just goofing off. For about 10 to 15 years of Steve Jobs' life, he literally ate, slept, and was breathing Apple computers or Macintosh. Those individuals completely immersed themselves. So the first major secret we're going to teach you, and of course we're going to talk about ourselves in a second as to how we actually got our start and what kind of immersion we had, but the first secret is the concept that all successful people immerse themselves in their business. They don't say, I'm going to dabble in my business. I'm not going to spend an hour a day really trying to get better at it. It's they immerse themselves, and you're going to need to do a certain level of that to become a successful person.
So start falling in love with what you're doing now, because if you don't love what you're doing, then switch into another role where you will, because being in a position where you are going to be immersing yourself into this, we're talking full days, and you got to love what you're doing. So starting off in our careers, I actually started off in the investment side of the industry as a broker. I learned from there how to work very hard in how to analyze specific investments and their underlying assets. So I created a very strong analytical mindset there.
And for me, really what I was doing when I started off, when I was 13 years old, I was cold calling. I was cold calling for a company called The Gardener out here in Ontario. And what these guys would do is they'd mow your lawn, or they, of course, would plow your driveway, because that's a valuable thing in the winter up here in Canada. And I was cold calling for 5-6 hours a day at the age of 13. And then I was working at camps, and I was schmoozing parents all the time. And then after that, I was listening at a private investment advice shop, listening to very powerful stockbrokers pitch to their clients for 9 hours a day. So I always had a good work ethic, but I had the opportunity to listen to people sell all the time. And then every single job I've had in my entire career had some level of sales expertise. So it's not like I became a good communicator yesterday and I just woke up and I was like, hey, I'm a great communicator. It's not like my mom fostered a great communicator out of me. No, not at all. It's really what happened is that every single job that I've had some level of communication, and I paid attention. My mom, I can tell you one thing, and same thing with Colleen's parents as well. They created kids that had amazing work ethics. We work hard, absolutely, and we like what we do. We don't want to be in a business that we don't love. So what we do is we work hard, but that also means that we spend the time. Now, what's the benefit to you, of course? The benefit to you is that we're going to take all of our knowledge, our 10,000 hours, or our thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of selling people and communicating with people, and we're going to teach it to you in a much faster timeline. So you're going to learn from all of our mistakes and all of our successes. You're going to pick them up a lot faster.
That's right. And I can actually speak from firsthand perspective there, because I was actually Lenny's junior. When I started off working alongside with him, he was in my mentorship role, and he still very much carries out that mentorship role with me to this day. What happened for me was I was in a very unique position, because Lenny had already found a very high level of success for himself when I did partner up with him. And from there, I was able to actually learn many of the fundamental principles from him directly about how to achieve success in a quick fashion. So first year that I was working with him, I started off, I built my foundation, and then every year since then, I have doubled my income. So I've done very well under his direction, and it has been because all of the experience that he generated before working with me, he was able to seamlessly transfer over to me. I was able to adapt all of the skills and the knowledge that he had already developed very quickly and implement them into my own structures. Now, I did not create the wheel again. That is not what we are saying. What I did was I made them my own. So the sales techniques that he presented to me, I took them and I just put my own voice on them. So exactly as he set them forth, but now I put my voice with them so they were authentic to me. And let me tell you, success started pouring in quickly.
And really, that kind of alludes to one of our master program type things, is that you need to have an authentic voice in anything that you do. But that brings us to secret number 2.
How you communicate is far more important than what you say.
So we'll just recap that. The how is more important than the what, which maybe just blew your mind, but now we're going to show off about communication, about how much we know about communication, because the reality is it's not the what. It's not the content of what you're saying. It's how you're communicating it that actually is more important. And we're going to show you how much that is the case.
So just quickly speaking about the average span that the mind pays attention. So, you've probably heard sales programs that will tell you you've got 30 seconds of a dedicated attention span. Some will tell you 20, some will tell you 15. We're going to say it's between 5 to 7 that you actually have a dedicated attention span. So that's why these words are not as important as what you're saying as it is about what you are communicating.
So think about this, guys. Who here has been on a seminar before or been to a seminar with a public speaker or a motivational speaker or something like that? I'm sure there's quite a few people. You can type in the chat box if you want. If not, just say yes if you want to. And you've seen these speakers speak, and they say something like, hey, I have this theory about life and da-da-da-da. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. How is everyone feeling? Everyone feeling good? Yeah. Everyone happy today? Yeah. So the person's content is becoming less and less important. Every single time you say the word yes to that person, the content of what they're saying is becoming less and less important, because now you're in almost what's called a hypnotic trance, which is a yes chain. So every time that you say yes, you become more and more likely from an odds perspective, if anyone's a gambler out there, an odds perspective, to say yes again. So every time you say yes to someone, you become more likely to say yes to them the next time they ask you the same question that's a yes or no question. So the more a public speaker does that, the better for you. So that's a little tidbit for you in terms of what you can use in the communication side of things when you're in the sales floor. The more questions that you know where the answer is yes when you do in an early part of the meeting, the more likely the person's going to say yes when it comes time to make the sale.
That's right, because all sales take place on an unconscious level, and we're going to dive into that concept much deeper further into the modules, but what we want you to understand is how to read body language. So they say that communication is mostly comprised of your physical body language, supported by the tonality, and the words equal a very mere 7% of the whole communication cycle. Now, various different sources will debate the exact percentile of that, but what is important for you to understand is the majority of body language starts with your physical state. So, is it open? Is it closed? Your tonality, are you positive and upbeat? Are you negative? How does it all sound, not just to you, but to your clientele that you are communicating to? We, on average, absorb 7 billion bits of information, or 7 million bits of information per second through all of our various different VAKOGs. We'll explain VAKOG in a moment. But 7 million bits of information per second is being processed. Now, of course, a large amount of that is deleted, distorted, and generalized. So you only consciously process a certain amount. But that's why physiology is such an important communicative tool. And tonality, if you're saying something to somebody in an incongruent tone, you are going to make a very large negative impact with them, because it's going to create signals for distrust, and that is what you absolutely want to avoid.
So now that you're a master of body language, let's say, argument's sake, and you're talking to someone and you finally are distilling it down to the content of what you're saying, then you have to, of course, understand that the person is only listening to you based on a certain level of information that's coming through. So what does that mean? It means, let's say they're in a bad mood. Are they going to be listening to you nearly as well? No. So again, it's the how, because we need to now bypass the bad mood or the good mood. If they're a good mood, are they hearing everything that you're saying because they're just so positive? Maybe they're focusing on maybe the date that they had the night before, or maybe that they're doing so well in business, so they're saying, well, I'm just going to think about my business. They're not even listening to you. Or maybe that you said something and it triggered a memory for them. So let's say you're talking about the concept of safety, which is something that I always like to talk about. Well, you're talking about safety, and all of a sudden they remember this bad car accident that they were in 20 years ago, and they start to actually visually remember that. Are they actually hearing what you're having to say? And let's say, argument's sake, they have a specific view of the world, and you are contrary to their view of the world. Let's say they're a conservative person and you're more of a liberal person, and you're communicating your ideas in that liberal ideology. Do you think that the person who's conservative is going to hear you nearly as well? No. So understanding those things, so now that you've gone through the body language filter, now you need to go through the emotional state, memories, and the model of the world filter. So again, it's all starting to come down to how you're communicating the information, not the what you're communicating.
And how do you communicate? So many of you are going to be familiar with the first three, which is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Olfactory and gustatory are two supporting ones that we can chat a little bit more about. But when all sales take place on an unconscious level, it's the representational system that you must be able to identify to be able to access that unconscious level. So for instance, if you're talking to somebody who is predominantly communicating through a visual VAKOG, that person is going to be more receptive to words that you use that have a visual tone. For instance, do you like the look of that? The structure, can you understand how it all works together, and the layout that it would fit with you? You're going to be talking in a visual standpoint. An auditory person, they're going to be very susceptible to how you say things. They'll be very, very susceptible to the tone in which you use. Going back to tonality and physiology, those two communicative tools are very important. So you're talking auditory, you're going to want to start using auditory language, which means, do you like the sound of that? The tone of what you're saying, do you like how that rings through to you? Does it sound good to what you're wanting to achieve? Lastly, kinesthetic. So kinesthetic has to do with feelings, emotions, the way that it feels inside. So kinesthetic people tend to want to be in a more comfortable state. They sometimes seem a little bit more emotional, whether negative or positively emotional, but they tend to be a little bit of a more emotional person. So a kinesthetic person you're going to want to relate to on more of that level as well. So how does it feel you want to communicate with them? You want to always be asking them about that internal physical response that they're generating.
Yeah, so again, to bring it back and kind of summarize what's going on right here is we've now gone through now only three things, and there's so much information that's getting lost because maybe it's being communicated in the wrong way. And then we now have different types of buyers, there's three different types of buyers. There's a performance buyer, there's an experimental buyer, and there's a value buyer. Meaning that a performance buyer is someone who wants the past history of the product. They're individuals who always want the backstory as to what's the rates of return on an investment were to be, or the crash test rating on a car, or if they're looking at, let's say, an online course, they want to, of course, find out exactly what your success rate, how much revenue have you been able to generate from your course, or how much revenue are you supposed to be able to help other people generate from what you do as well. An experimental buyer is someone who wants the newest, greatest, I guess no one else has the limited edition type of something. So individuals who, of course, don't want to have the same thing that everyone else does, so you have to communicate to them in that way as well. So meaning that they don't want something that has that long backstory to it. They want something that is limited edition to them. And then there's the value buyer. The value buyer, of course, is someone who, of course, wants to know the value proposition to this. Is this discounted? Is this going to be an added value to my life? Is this something that's the right price point, whereas everywhere else is something different? So meaning, is it a sale? And if you're not communicating to them in those different ways, your message is going to get lost. And that really is the end of secret number 2, is because there's so much information we can provide you. We can go on and on for hours on how you need to, of course, change how you understand how people are hearing you, because you may have a good product. You may have a great online course. You may have a great car. You may have a great investment. You may have a great house. You may have all these great things that you're looking to sell. The problem is you're focusing on the product itself. Whereas what's happening is, through various levels of communication, you just saw that unless you're communicating in the exact right way, it doesn't matter how good your product is, the message is getting lost.
That's right. And that's now bringing us to secret number 3, how to adapt your communication to your audience. So when you are selling to your audience, it is imperative that you know your audience. And I'm not saying that you've known your audience for a long time, because oftentimes you may be sitting in front of somebody where it's your first time ever speaking to them. But you need to be able to quickly identify what audience category they fall into, because that's going to be what will help bring you to the successful sale.
So one of the big buzzwords that Colleen and I have both noticed over the last, let's call it 5 years, maybe even less than that, is that everyone wants to communicate with millennials. They're the new baby boom. They're the individuals who are so strong in terms of their buying power, in terms of how they're shaping the market. We need to change how we're going to actually speak to millennials. If you don't know what a millennial is, you can just check our previous slide that we just had up there that has the definition of millennials. But again, it's young people. And what most people are talking about, the big thing that every salesperson is talking about, which we believe to be really 1/10 of the story, is how you should be marketing towards millennials, how you should change your approach to market to millennials. But again, that's important, sure. But what people aren't realizing is that millennials have changed the market for all of us. Not just how millennials actually think, they actually changed how a 50-year-old actually consumes information. They've changed how a 15-year-old consumes information. And that's what's more important, is to actually understand what the millennials have done to the rest of the marketplace so that you too can take advantage of that.
That's right. So for a quick second, let's give you an example, because you may be asking, well, what does that actually mean? How do millennials actually affect us? So take Facebook, for instance. The average age of a Facebook user was approximately 35 years old. Now, everyone thought that the Facebook users would be teenagers and young adults, but it was actually an older demographic that was using it. Why? Because the older demographic saw the younger demographic using it and saw a quicker way to be able to access their friends. Because of course, life is busy, and the older that you get, the more responsibilities that you have. It becomes very difficult to be able to stay in connection with old friends and also reconnect with some that maybe you've gone to school with or whatever that case is. So that's why we were seeing that large group. So originally, with Facebook being created in university for university students, that was their original target. However, that millennial impact actually migrated it over to a older demographic so that that demographic could then use it. So the intended demographic was not the actual one that ended up being the largest demographic of use. And that's the case with a lot of different products. Think about how many of you maybe have a grandparent or a parent that is over the age of 70 and has a cell phone and uses their cell phone for things like communicating, text messaging. So they no longer want to call, they want to text now because that's the way that everybody's communicating these days. They're adapting to it. So while they are not a millennial, the millennial has absolutely stepped in and affected the way that they communicate.
Although you can't see me right now, I have this stupid grin on my face because I'm looking at the Instagram icon there. And just to take a quick little history lesson right here, how did people used to share their pictures with everyone else about 30 years ago? And the answer is, you may see this on TV sometimes, and again, I'm one of these guys who loves his TV, is you'll see people actually with these slide projectors. They used to invite people over and say, you know, I was on vacation, come over to my house, I'd love to show you the pictures, I'm going to go on the slide projector, and we're going to go through the pictures. And people would dread it, and they'd hate it, and they'd get drunk just so they can do it. But nowadays, that's what Instagram is. Instagram is that constantly, and that you post exactly what's happening with your life all the time, showing people your slide projector all of the time. And it's become actually an industry unto itself. And if you think about business, think about exactly what's happening with the newspapers out there.
That's right. So take a look. How close to your hand is your phone right now? it's probably only a mere inches away for the majority of the people who are listening in on that. And that's because in Canada alone, there are over 27 million people with smartphones. 86% of the population has a smartphone. Now, think about this. When did Apple first invent their smartphone? It was in 2009. That is only 7 years ago. So think about how much our industry has drastically changed. Now look at your phone and take into consideration what your phone now represents to you. It represents a camera, and probably a better camera than one that you had maybe a year ago that was dedicated to taking just pictures. It represents a source for you to be able to connect with friends and family through Instagram, through email, through Facebook, through many different social media platforms. Now, take into consideration what else it does for you. You can do your banking on your phone. You can download apps to keep credit card information on your phone, bank card information. If you have if you had a wallet that was full of gift cards, you can have an app now that does that. It literally represents a one-stop shop for almost all of your life. And that's why we've seen such a change in the way that people absorb information. So going back to what we were talking about, print, how has that changed so drastically?
Well, you look at print media. Where do you get your news from? Do you sit there and wait at 6:30 in the evening to watch it on TV? Do you wake up in the morning and read the newspaper? Or do you go to your Facebook newsfeed and actually notice all the stuff on Huffington Post, or you notice on a Fox News, or you notice it on CNN? Whatever is the medium that you're actually reading it, it's actually usually through social media in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you have an app that's on your phone that actually downloads the information for you. The reality is that we're an on-demand world at this time. So we're at a place right now where information is consumed in such a way that the actual consumer is the one who is actually deciding how much they want or how little they want. So that's why you're seeing that death of media. And that's, again, back to, if I link it back to the millennials, of course, have not necessarily just said, well, I only want information this way. No, it's that they've changed the way everyone else deals with information, because they said originally, I want information that if I want it, I'm going to get it. If I don't want it, I don't want to get it. If I don't want to wait till 6:30 to get it, I'm going to get it whenever I want. So what's happened is that they showed the value of that to everyone else, and everyone said, that's fantastic. I want that as well. I want to control my information flow as well. I don't want to sit there and watch the news and watch 5-6 stories that I don't give a flying you-know-what about. I want to read the stories and learn about the stories that actually mean something to me. And that, of course, has changed the way people gather information as well. And how are we going to adapt to that? I think Colleen's about to show you why that's so important in a sales capacity and a communication capacity.
That's right. Because in a situation where we are so used to instant gratification, we want the information hits to be quick, concise, and no more than we need for the basic details. So that brings us to the scuba theory. So maybe you've gone scuba diving, maybe you haven't. But when you go scuba diving, you enter into the water, you go down a couple of feet, and then you let your body equalize. So your equilibrium has to become depressured so that you can go down a little bit more. You can't just dive right down to the bottom of the sea right away, because if you did, literally your internal organs would probably explode. So what you have to do is incrementally go down bit by bit. But the whole theory is that you are not overwhelming each step. It's quick and concise details. So when you are talking to a client, you want to start off by going down to point number 1 and explaining it quickly. We call it a skeleton presentation, and it's very much like a hamburger bun essay that you may have seen when you were in high school. Similar concepts there, but what you're doing essentially is you're starting off with the first introductory point, providing then quick and concise informational points to support your introductory point, and then bringing it to a complete wrapped up solution at the end and bringing it back up to the top of your introductory point. You want to make sure that you're keeping it very high level and that you're letting them ask the questions that they need answers to. Never oversupplying information, because if you oversupply information and you've got someone who is affected by millennials or is a millennial themselves, you're going to lose them. They'll no longer be on the hook because you've just overwhelmed them with too much information that they didn't want to hear in the first place, and they're going to walk away from it.
And really, that's it, guys, is that because millennials are so important to how we actually consume information right now, or I guess they've changed how we consume information, it really has forced us to become very concise. When you're saying something to someone or you're trying to teach them something, you keep it high level and then you ask for approval. Does that make sense to you? Yes, absolutely. Would you like more information? Yes. Then you move a little bit deeper. And you get that approval consistently. So really, every time you open your mouth, it has to have really two needs for it. Either you're going to be teaching someone about the product that you're actually offering right now, or you're going to be creating some kind of emotional thing from this person. And when I say thing, what I'm really trying to say is this. Sales happen really at two spots. Most importantly, the first spot is the emotional side. But you of course, have to have some facts and figures to support your information. So every time I open my mouth when I'm making a sale, what I want to know is I want to actually focus in on, one, am I creating an emotional response from this person? So that are they creating either pain to not having this product, or are they creating pleasure to the product that I'm offering? Those are the emotional responses I want to create. And secondly, the second thing I want to do is I want to actually create the factual information or the logical behavior behind the product that I'm offering them. And every time I open my mouth, that's exactly my entire reason for speaking. I don't talk a lot when I'm actually in the sales floor. A lot of salespeople do happen to talk a ton because that's what they're trained to do. I'm very concise in my sales approach, in that if I'm not creating an emotional response, I'm usually not talking a lot, because I can tell you most people, when they are trying to purchase something from me or any of my staff or Colleen or whoever it is, they don't need that much information about the product. They need the basic information of the product, and they need a massive amount of emotional connection to, of course, our product as well.
That's right. So by doing that, what are we able to do for you? More disposable income. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to be able to have more income to choose to spend on things, whether it's something that they want, like an instant gratification for millennials, or maybe it's something that they are saving up for.
And everyone needs a coach. The reality is you can probably learn a lot of this stuff on your own if you had 10,000 hours or 20,000 hours to do it. But you don't. No one does. You have to find someone, of course, who knows all these little tricks, knows all these little tips, who has spent the time to do it. And of course, how invaluable would that be? It's very valuable.
So let us ask you this question. Would you agree it's been time well spent so far with us?
Old habits are definitely hard to break for us, and we understand that. So you're watching this seminar or this webinar, whatever you want to call it, and you spent the time, you've learned some excellent little tools that, of course, can be valuable to you. You learned exactly that success doesn't happen overnight. You've learned the fact that you need to communicate. It's more important about the how than the what you're communicating. And then lastly, we talked to you about exactly how you need to actually adapt that communication for the world that we live in right now. But you also realize that if you don't do anything and you don't change how you're actually approaching the world, this was great information, but it really wasn't that useful. You need to, of course, do something. You need to take action, and everyone needs to understand that. If that you hear the information, now's the time to actually take the appropriate action. Today, break that habit.
That's right. Because we want to be able to help you. We want to be able to bring you to a new level of success, the success that you deserve to be able to achieve. So that means acting now, not putting it aside and waiting for later, because you've watched webinars. You've watched this webinar. You've put the time in so far. Why stop now? Why not take that next step? Go to the next level today.
And really, that's where it comes into, guys, is we can't cover everything. There's so much information. There's so much stuff that we can give you. We have literally given you the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. There's tons and tons of information that we have learned, tons of communication techniques, and that's what, of course, our thousands upon thousands of hours of not just speaking to people, but learning has actually created for us. We are not just practitioners of neurolinguistic programs, we're master practitioners. And we're not just master practitioners of neurolinguistic programming, we're trainers of other trainers. So we have a special offer for you today so that you can get everything that you need to know will be available to you.
And if you act fast, we're going to give you a special deal.
So introducing to everyone today the power of persuasion to position yourself, we call this the Transcending Focus Academy, which is our private member section to teach individuals how to communicate better. Think of yourself in life as a casino. You walk into the casino, you have a variety of different games that you can play. You can play the game where the odds are 1 in 100. You can play the game where the odds are 5 in 100, or you can play the game where it's 75 in 100, or you can play the game that it's 95 in 100 chances you're going to win. So 95 times out of 100, you're going to win if you play the game over here. And that's exactly what we're trying to teach you right now, is that with our school, with our tips, with our academy, with our knowledge, we're going to take the odds of you succeeding from 5 in 100 to 95 times in 100. Okay, that's the difference of being a knowledgeable person when it comes to communication.
So what is transcending focus? Transcending focus is the perfect equation between the power of persuasion, the internal physiology, and business mastery all combined into one platform.
So persuasion, of course, is how you communicate the information. Your internal psychology, of course, is going to be important because your head needs to be on right. And most people, I've noticed, their heads aren't on right. And lastly, we're going to teach you some great business tips because as good as a salesperson are, I've met some great salespeople that don't have a clue on how to run a good business. And you need all of them to become a successful person.
But how do you know this is going to work? How do you know this is actually for you? It's because these secrets really do work. We have been training hundreds of people with this and seeing significant results. All of our employees that have gone through our process have doubled their income.
And it's not just we're going to give you just 1 or 2 webinars. What we can say to you is we recognize that if you're going to be signing up for our academy, we need to indulge you in massive value. Enormous levels of value. So we're going to start, of course, with our 5-week Power of Persuasion course that is part of the actual academy. What kind of topics are going to be included in there, Colleen?
So we're going to start off by talking to you about simplified anchoring. What is anchoring and how to do it? Anchoring is one of the most powerful tools that you can implement automatically. The second you learn it, you can begin practicing it right away.
And it's bloody easy. Then, of course, we have rapport building 101 because, again, as we've already said, it's not the what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. So we're going to teach you how to get people to like you without even opening your mouth.
We're also going to be talking to you about speaking with certainty. So have you ever sat down with a client where you're not exactly confident in what you're saying and automatically that deal goes away quickly? Well, speaking with certainty is going to change that for you.
And of course, we're going to teach you about the things to avoid because it's not just about communicating well. It's about avoiding the stuff that actually isn't working for you. So avoid those things that create a certain level of distrust with the people that you're working with.
That's right. And then lastly, closing more effectively. You're going to be able to close more deals quicker, faster, and higher amounts of money after learning about closing more effectively.
So each week you're going to have, of course, another module added to that. So you're going to have, by the end of it, better persuasion when it comes to communicating with people.
We've also got a members section here that you can access anytime, anywhere. You're going to be able to log in and watch videos that are going to be training sessions. You'll join in on our social communities and be able to have conversations with other people in the same type of situation as you.
There's tons of video training on there. There's the great social community. There's downloading guides. There's literally everything that you could ever want. We try to put in here because we recognize that if you're going to sign up for us, we want you to speak very highly of us. So all about creating more and more value. So there are downloadable tools. There's constant news, articles that we're going to be sharing with you. And again, you can join our social communities.
That's right. We're also going to be doing live monthly webinar trainings that you'll be able to participate in. You're going to be able to watch those at replays at your leisure. So if you missed it the first time, you're going to be able to watch it the next time or watch it over and over and over again to make a bigger impact on your goals.
I've already mentioned to you about those downloaded resources. So what we're going to have there, we're going to have evaluation tools. How to figure out exactly is someone a visual person, auditory, kinesthetic person. There are going to be worksheets and goal setting sheets, checklists on all the things that you should be learning and all those things that you should be working on, training guides, audio recordings, much more.
And lastly, the private Facebook page. You're going to be able to interact directly with us And you're going to be able to ask questions that are top of mind. You'll be able to, again, network with other professionals, resource share tips and tricks with us, and we're going to do that with you as well, and access our video logs and speak with other people that may have the same questions that you do.
Also, one of the biggest things that we've noticed is that there's tons of courses out there. There's tons and tons of courses out there that you can take. But one of the things that they fall down on, of course, is the fact that there's no accountability. So you're not actually taking any action. You're just learning this information and saying, I've got some new information. I'm not going to do anything about it. Accountability is the cornerstone of a successful person. If you look at a guy like Michael Jordan, or you look at people who have been successful in their life, they all have coaches. It doesn't matter who they are. They all recognize that coaching is important, and that's what we are, is we're the ones who hold you accountable.
That's right. So who is this for? Who is this ideal for? It's really ideal for anybody that is in sales, and all of us are in sales. It's for anyone who has to be in a position where they're speaking to a group in public speaking, anyone who is in some type of financial or automotive sales, home sales, any type of production where you are in front of someone selling a concept or idea.
Really, if you're, let's say, trying to do a webinar, you're trying to build an online course, you need to be speaking to us, because really what happens is that you need to be able to communicate your ideas better than the rest of the marketplace, and you need to be the most attractive that you can be.
That's right. So why are we here in front of you? Because of the success that we've had with our students. Just take a look here and you can see some of the reviews that they've given us for past products that we've done with them.
Yeah, so if I just have to read this one out here, here's Darren saying, I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Lenny and Colleen. It was life-changing. Even if you are a seasoned sales veteran, you will take away some great information. Just starting out, definitely a must. And we can give you another 20 to 30 of these. There's no shortage of these type of reviews. So if you're interested in actually finding out what other people are doing, let us know.
So what are you going to get from this? You're going to get access to the Power of Persuasive Selling course. That's a value of $1,197. You're going to get the Success Starter Kit, which is a value of $497. You're going to participate in our monthly group coaching and accountability calls, a value of $197. And lastly, our members area guides, checklists, and downloads, a value of $297. It's a total value of $2,188.
But that's not all. As we always like to joke around, we have some bonuses for you today. And our bonus, of course, is the fact that you're also going to get our accountability workbook. Because as I've already mentioned to you, all this great knowledge, it's fantastic. It's amazing. We can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that we're going to help you in that side of the communication world. But you have to be held accountable, and that's where our accountability workbook comes in. And of course, we're also going to have the access to the private Facebook group as well that we're going to give you as well as part of the package. That's $2,400 approximately, almost $2,500 of value that we're going to be creating for you.
That's right. You're going to now have the ability to close more of the deals per month than you would have before.
And so just imagine if this is all you get from us, all that information is all you get. Are you going to be able to close one more sale? You're going to have a better revenue stream for yourself for the year? Are you going to have a situation where you're going to be able to communicate better with your spouse or your kids? Even if it's just one sale a month that we are able to get you, would that not be more of value?
How much more money could you be making? $1,000, $5,000, $20,000, $50,000? We're going to show you how to get there incrementally and how to increase your sales to levels of success that you never dreamed of. You're going to now be able to live the life that you and your family deserve.
So you can see, of course, why this would be worth that $2,400 thereabouts. But today, because you've listened to our webinar, we're going to give it to you for $1.
That's insane.
Right. $1. That's it. That's all it's going to take for you. So the offer to you right now, if you go to trnfo.co/start, you're going to get this program for $1 a month. For your first month, $1. Then every month thereafter that you're part of our program, it's $47 per month, and you can cancel at any time if you feel that we're not giving you the value that you felt that we promised you.
You are going to become part of our team. We want to be part of your team. We're not just another coach who's going to take your money and leave you with no results. We are committed to your success.
So with that, we wanted to open up to some questions because we did distill a massive amount of information for you. Now it's time to give us a few questions. So we'll just check on our chat bot right here and see exactly what shows up. So we already got a question coming through. There we go. Okay, great. So we got it from actually Halifax. Ooh, I like Halifax, Nova Scotia. Great area. If you've never been out there, please check it out. If you're from Boston, check out Halifax because Halifax is just gorgeous. So Halifax, we got Tom from Halifax, and Tom is actually asking us the question of, okay, that's great. Is there going to be in the member section an answer on how we can overcome all the why rather than the how or the how, sorry, which was secret number 2. I think I get what you're saying. So the question really is meaning this, guys. In the member section, are we going to start teaching you how to communicate more effectively so the what, which is your product, actually gets through to the people that you're speaking to? The answer is absolutely yes. We're going to show you some excellent tips on how to use your body language to actually get that rapport with people. We're also going to show you how to overcome certain obstacles so that the person which has what's called a critical faculty, which is almost like a shield that they use mentally, we're going to show you how to bypass that critical faculty by using anchoring, body language, language patterns, all those little tools that we have at our disposal. We're going to show you how to overcome that stuff.
That's right. And we're looking very forward to helping you do that. We've got another question coming in here from Ontario, and what they want to know is what forms of payment are acceptable. So you are able to pay online with a credit card if you'd like to. You can use the PayPal setting that we've got here. It really is an open platform for you being able to make payments, so that's not an issue at any time.
All right, we got time for one more question right now before we jump off the call because we do have to get back to it. And that is coming from California, actually. Okay, again, very nice. And this is Jane. So Jane from California is asking us right now, okay, what kind of ability do you have to do personal coaching right now? And the answer is at this time, that's something that we can discuss. But again, Colleen and I only take people who are absolutely committed to following our lead when it comes to personal coaching. And again, there is a large cost when it comes to personal coaching. So what we'd like to see is anyone who wants to get involved in any personal coaching, we want to see you be able to take the actual courses that we offer on our program. Because if you're actually showing that you are committed to constantly working on these things, that's when we actually, show up. I think the adage is when the student is ready, the master appears. And what we recognize is that if you're not committed, we can actually usually see that quite quickly because Colleen and I are checking these things so that we're holding you accountable, making sure that you're doing what you need to do. So with that, we want to thank everyone for joining us on the webinar here. Again, $1 for that first month, $47 every month thereafter. Again, if you're able to close one more sale because we're teaching you how to communicate more effectively, is that of value to you?
How much more money will you make? $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 in addition? It's really limitless. The only limit is you taking action today.
All right, so with that, we thank you. We hope that you enjoyed the call. We know that we did. Take care.